I'm the bad guy. Duh.
Get ready, it's time for the Daily Breakdown with Mr. Keelan. Bet you're pretty disturbed now, huh? Figure a lot of you probably thought I was being a bad guy by making you watch all these videos, so there's my treat for you. Keelan Eilish or Billy Keelan or I don't know. You'll never unsee that. Anyway, happy Thursday. Hope you're doing fabulous. Let's get into another flip lesson. Shout out to my Amistadians, all my friends from House Amistad. Hope you've been doing great this week. We got one more school day to go for this week and one more day for both of the units that we've been dealing with from the work that we sent home in the beginning. So we're almost there. Almost there. Let's get into the video, shall we? Hey, sixth graders, how are you? Today we're going to continue our exploration of the Roman Republic. Our objectives for this lesson, I want you to be able to compare and contrast the government systems of a direct democracy, which we see in Athens, and a republic, which we see, as you know, in Rome. And we're going to analyze the importance that a separation of powers plays in maintaining a republic. And lastly, I want to explore that idea of dictatorship in the Roman Republic a bit more, and I want you to be able to explain how that worked in the Roman Republic. You might notice that there's been a lot of sections about the Roman Republic. That might be because it's really important. The Roman Republic, in a lot of ways, was a model that our founders in the U.S. Constitution worked off of. They saw leaders like Cicero and others in the Roman Republic as kind of their heroes of what they wanted to do in trying to set up a democratic republic in their government. If we look, a lot of principles that the Romans had, like a separation of powers, they worked into our government. So it's directly affects us, not just the people of Rome. So we often hear the term democracy. We live in a democracy. It's not exactly completely true. We live in a democratic form of government. Our form of government is a democratic republic, like Rome's had. Ours is definitely much more encompassing, but throughout our history, it took a long time for it to become more encompassing. But really, if we're talking that root word, democratic, or democracy, we kind of have to have a good understanding of what that means, especially since we haven't covered Greece yet, since I'm kind of taking you out of order here of things. And that term, democracy, is a form of government where the people have the right to rule over themselves. It comes from the Greek term demos kratos, which means demos, the people, kratos, rule. So democracy, and it's actually a Greek root word. To use the terminology of Abraham Lincoln, one of our great presidents, from the Gettysburg Address, it's a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So the government is made up of us. It works for our benefit. So it's a government made up of us. It's all of us that are part of it, that elect it, and it works for us. Now, there are many different types of democracies. Athens, most famously, and had a lot of influence on the Romans, had a direct democracy. A direct democracy is a bit different than what we have in the U.S. and what the Romans had. In a direct democracy, every citizen votes on every law. Like Rome, Athens had citizenship pretty limited. But if you were a citizen, you had a right to vote on every single law. Rome's different. The people in Rome elect representatives, the senators, the members of the assembly, to make the laws for them. And that's a bit different. We can just find this chart, just kind of put them head to head. In a democracy, everyone participates in every decision. In a republic, the elected representatives make the decisions. So, for example, let's say I was going to have a class party, right? And I'm going to have all the sixth graders. We're going to have a party. And I decided to put up for a vote what food we're going to eat for the party. And we put up cheeseburgers and pizza. And 51% of the class says pizza. Well, that means that everybody is getting served pizza. If 51% of the class votes burgers, then everyone in the class is getting burgers. That's democracy. It's majority rules. So everyone gets to have a say in the decision, but let's say if the burger wins, then everyone's getting burgers. Even if you're a vegetarian, you're getting burgers. Even if you don't like burgers, you're getting burgers. Even if you really want a pizza, you're getting burgers. And that's the idea of a democracy, is majority rules. As long as you have 51%, you have a say on everything else. And what can happen in democracy is that since it's the majority rules, those who are not in the majority, those who are in the 49%, can have no protection of their individual rights, can have a lot of a bone to pick because they feel like they're always being left out. Auto recovery file. Love that you always do this when I'm in the middle of one of these. Anyways, whereas a republic, you have people are elected by representatives. So let's say we have a class election to determine who's going to order for us. And we have, a person who's saying, I'm the pizza party. I believe we should have pizza. I have a person that's saying that we should have burgers. You might have other people who are saying, I have other choices, and they are going to run. And then we elect the people who we think best represent what we like. And then they'll make the decisions. They'll make the choices for us. If we don't like the way they're making decisions, if we don't like the decisions that they're making, if we don't like the way that they're governing, then we have the right to fire them. Another key part of a republic is that those who are not in the majority have some say, have some rights. And this is the idea that we don't want to have just a tyranny of the majority, a mobocracy where just the mob gets to rule over everybody else. 51% pushes around the other group. But also a way of trying to avoid having one person, a tyrant, over everybody. So it's a balancing act. And we see that a republic is much more suitable, say, for a large population. Democracy might work in our classroom, whereas a republic might work to govern the entire school. In the Roman Republic, there's several legacies that are crucially important that we see affect the U.S. government today. Remember, we have a republic. So, their fear of tyranny, their fear of one person with absolute power, ruling selfishly, dictating over everybody, was very prevalent. And they wanted to do what they could within their government to prevent any one person from having too much power. To this end, they separated out the powers of the government. They split it up. If you think of a government, it's a very powerful institution. Your government has the power to take money from you. Taxes has the power to declare war and send you into a violent situation. Governments have the power to take property for the good of the society. There's a lot of power that comes with the government. So one way to try to make sure the government never gets too powerful is to split up those powers. So like we learned in the last unit, the Roman Republic was split up between several different groups. You had the magistrates who settled disputes about the laws, the consuls who controlled the military and enforced, and then legislation making laws was determined by the Senate, the Assembly, and the tribunes. If we look, we don't have all the same names. We have some of the same names. For example, a Senate, and many states have an Assembly. But we have a similar separation of powers in that we have a judicial branch headed up by the U.S. Supreme Court, an executive branch led by the President of the United States, and a legislative branch led by the Congress, which, like the Romans, was split into different sections. We have the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, which is an assembly. Wow, we even use Roman terms. So you see here the symbols of our three branches of government, which are very similar to those of the Romans. That idea of a separation of powers is a big deal.